G'day, guys. Welcome back to the Steel Syndicate Podcast. I'm your host, Mark, and my co-host, Owen, mate. What's going on? How you traveling?
I'm good, man. All good here in the UK, where it's just, I don't know, it's getting late now, quarter to midnight. How about you, man? How are you?
Quarter to midnight. Are you on the beers?
I've had a couple.
Yeah, had a
I'm not
few
going to
beers.
advertise, so I didn't show the actual brand of beer.
Yeah, well, that's it, right? You can't be giving away too many secrets. Now, today we are talking about. You sent me this message, and I'm going to bring it up right away,
Okay,
right?
man.
And it's about the quarterback race. And then Bill Cowell was on. Shout out to HeavySteelers.com where I got this quote from. So go check the article out. But it says here we're talking about the is a 3 QB race even possible? Right, having 3 quarterback into the training camp into preseason, is it even possible? Right, you sent me this message, and Bill Cowher responded with this: we had 3 quarterbacks, and I just remember at the time I said, okay, we'll try to split it up. Cowher told SXM Move the Change. If you remember, at the very early time in that process, I asked Cordell to go receiver because it was just too hard to get 3 quarterbacks enough reps to really legitimize to make a very true evaluation. So I think that's going to be the toughest thing for them to do. And the question today, and the title of today's podcast, Owen, is: is a 3 QB race even possible? What are your thoughts about this?
I've picked up this Bill Cowher story and was listening, obviously reading loads of stuff I could find on what Bill Cowher had to say. And I think he's got good experience on this, because going back to that QB race that he's talking about, where there was Mike Tomczak, who's still the best quarterback out of Ohio State, by the way, and Jim Miller and Cordell Stewart, and he just said it wasn't possible. You just cannot really get enough reps to really make that valuable judgment. When you're trying to split reps with the first team, second team, whatever, at training camp, and then in pre-season, to get a good handle on your quarterbacks, you just can't do it amongst 3. It just is not possible to get that quality there.
Oh, my apologies, Owen. We forgot to do the video to kick off the show, because a lot of fans of ours may not think what we're actually doing right now. And you guys have joined the Steel Syndicate Podcast. Is that creepy enough?
Just a little bit.
All right.
Just a little bit.
So so I need the answer again. No, I'm only joking. No, so yeah, but it is a pretty big topic right today. So, for my and we're going to dive into we're going to try and figure this out, right? Is it even possible? Because 3 QB race, in my understanding, I think you almost need like a quarterback who is number 1, right? You can't have them all be ones and think, well, who do I choose at the end? I think you need some hierarchy there, wouldn't you say?
Yeah.
That in my opinion, would be Trubisky, and it possibly, in the Pittsburgh Steelers' opinion, could be Trubisky, Rudolph, and Kenny. That's the way they kind of see it, right?
Yeah. I think, that's what they're saying openly. Well, trying to say at the moment, that it is between Kenny, Mason, and Mitch. But I think, Coach Cowher speaks from great authority. I've got a lot of respect for Bill Cowher. The guy's a Super Bowl champion. He's a Hall of Famer. He was exceptionally successful in his time with Pittsburgh. I mean, let's face it, he took the Steelers to the Super Bowl with Neil O'Donnell as quarterback, for goodness sake. So, we need to listen to what he's saying. And I think, 3-way quarterback competition just is not possible. I think you've got to take it down to 2 guys competing, against each other. And it's like what Coach Tomlin always says, isn't it? 2 dogs, 1 bone. That's the way it's got to be.
Yeah, but even to a certain point, I think even the 2 QB race is kind of like, surely the coaching staff knows who they're going to pick for number 1, or have a more of an inkling towards number 1, right? So this is probably the first time in Steelers history in a very long time that we have actual quarterback competition, where, let's just say it is it's so hard though, right? Because you have Mitchell Trubisky, who comes in as the free agent. You have Mason Rudolph, who's been there for 4 or 5 years, and now you have Kenny Pickett. So you kind of think, well, if a 3 QB race isn't possible, right? Which is the debate we're arguing. Is it possible? If that's not possible, then who would be the two? You know,
Yeah,
where do you even go from that?
Yeah, I mean, I think you've got to trim it to two. I think who would be the two? It's got to be Mitchell Trubisky and Kenny Pickett. That's two you've got to go for, because at the end of the day, you need someone who's going to fit the Canada system, who is mobile, who has the ability to throw on the run. Well, that's Pickett and Trubisky. You need. They just, to me, fit the system better. And, I think Bill Cowher was getting at that in what he said. He also said in that interview, he said that about Mitchell Trubisky, he said that I do like Mitch Trubisky. I think he's athletic. He can get on the perimeter. I think a lot of things Ben did early in his career and was not able to do late in his career, we've now got in that backfield with Mitch Trubisky. So I think, he was very positive about the whole Trubisky situation. And he spoke about Kenny in terms of the fact that Kenny needs to sit and learn for a year, or sit and learn for at least part of this season, because he spoke about the step up between the college game and the NFL game is huge.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so I've got a scenario for you then. Let's say, for instance, that Kenny Pickett wasn't there and we only drafted Chris Oladokun. Would you just say it would be a two quarterback race, and then you would sit the Chris Oladokun for a year? Very similar to what you just said about Kenny Pickett. Would it be the quarterback race between Trubisky and Rudolph and 1 and 2, and that's it? Because I think having the third quarterback now, it's so difficult to understand, because I know what the Steelers want to do from what they've said and told us. Well, not us personally, we're not that big yet, but what they've told us, right, is we're going with Trubisky. I think Matt Canada got asked the other day. Trubisky, Rudolph, Kenny. Now, in your scenario, if they were to sit Kenny Pickett under Bill Cowher's advice, sure, that can happen, but he's a number 1 overall pick. Isn't it interesting? But however, if he wasn't there, if Kenny wasn't there, so we went someone else and we got Chris Oladokun in number 7, then you'd only have a choice of 2, which is Trubisky or Rudolph.
Yeah, I agree. I think you would only have Trubisky v. Rudolph. I mean, obviously the situation was complicated by what happened to Dwayne Haskins. I think he would have been in there.
100%. That's 100%. I agree with you.
And Kevin Colbert did come out before he retired and said they wanted 4 arms to go into training camp. So, but no, I think you're right that if it was just a situation we hadn't drafted Kenny Pickett, we had taken someone else in that first round. Yeah, I think it would be a straight fight between Mitch and Mason.
And then that would probably, in my eyes, would lean towards that. I think Trubisky would take the job over Mason Rudolph just by the true quarterback competition, which is 1-2. But what throws a spanner in the works is that we have Rudolph there now, and now we've talked about in previous podcasts where Rudolph's sitting there thinking, well, it's going to be my job, or I got to go out and earn it. However, you've just brought in 3 colleagues of yours, three quarterbacks to fight for your spot. So where do you sit on the chopping block? And I know you did a video yesterday talking about potential trade, and one of the analysts talked about that. Who was the analyst again? I can't remember his name.
A guy called Ray Fittipaldi, who's a Steelers beat writer for the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. A guy who has access to the Steelers front office guys, talks to players, talks to GMs. So yeah, he's a guy that has a bit of knowledge of what the Pittsburgh Steelers do.
So he was pretty much saying, well, they'll be trading Mason, or having thought to trade Mason to another team. And
yeah, I mean, that was what he was saying basically. That he's almost certain that Mason's time in Pittsburgh is coming to an end. The future is Pickett is Trubisky. It's like I've been saying all along. You don't go out and do what the Steelers did if you've got confidence in Mason Rudolph as someone who's going to come in and be a starter. Because if you've got your guy as your starter and you're confident that's your long-term start. I mean, Mason's not old, he's still young. If you're confident that he's going to be your star for the next 5, 6, 7, 8 years, you go out and you draft someone later on in the draft, someone like a Bailey Zappi or was it Alabi, the guy out of Western Michigan, or even Oladokun. You go out and sign a free agent, but not someone within the first few hours of legal tampering who is the highest rated free agent quarterback. You don't do that if you've got ultimate confidence in the guy you've already got. It just doesn't happen.
Well, there must be there must be a plan happening then, because I think there are some Steelers fans out there that think that Rudolph may start, and I really don't care who starts. I really just want to see the team win and be successful. But when you're looking at it, there must be a certain plan because the Pittsburgh Steelers go out and sign 2 quarterbacks in this draft. Kenny Pickett, who could be hopefully, he could be the future. We don't know, right? And a lot of these guys can fall flat on their face. But you have the option of now you got Kenny Pickett and Chris Oladukin for probably the next 4 years, depending how it goes on their rookie contracts. And Kenny Pickett would be the 5th year option available. So there could be a chance that this is what the Steelers may do. And there's so many scenarios you can go with. Scenario number 1, you could go out there and play Kenny Pickett, like hands down, put him out there to the Wolves and see what happens, right? But the Steelers don't normally, they wouldn't normally do that, would they?
No.
And the other scenarios consist of like sitting Pickett, possibly even starting Rudolph and having Trubisky as backup. And then then you think, well, why would they bring in Trubisky to pay him to 2-year deal for what they paid him just to sit? So you have to start thinking. I think it does lean towards a trade, even though it's just, I feel like something will happen before in the offseason, right? And he said, around August maybe, because other teams might see Rudolph as a candidate.
Yeah, I mean, Fittipaldo was talking very much about the start of training camp or at August time. He was saying like 2 to 3 weeks into training camp or around about the preseason time, trading someone, which of course that timetable could change depending on what happens in other franchises as regards injuries to other QBs. Like CJ Beathard went down in Jacksonville's mini camp the other day, but it wasn't as bad as obviously a lot of people feared. But there's still quarterback needy teams out there. There's still teams that need backup quarterbacks and need starting quarterbacks. So there's every chance that they could move for someone like Rudolph. But I think a lot depends on how Mason performs in training camp, in any preseason games, if he gets that far. I think we're doing a bit of, not the organization, but the fans are doing a bit of disservice to the fact that there's a lot of down talk about Rudolph, which I know I'm as guilty of. But
yes, you are.
But if other franchises are hearing that, we don't rate him, we don't think he's any good, blah blah blah, but they're going to think, well, let's just wait until he gets cut. We're not going to trade anything for him. So that's obviously a dilemma the Steelers have got. But there is still quarterback needy teams out there. I mean, you've got the Bears need an experienced backup. The 49ers need an experienced backup still. Carolina, I mean, they've got a quarterback competition between Sam Darnold and Matt Corral, for goodness sake. You've got the Seattle Seahawks. Their competitions between Geno Smith and Drew Lock. I'm not being funny, but they're dread. I mean, if I was a Seahawks fan, I'd be really worried about this season.
Yeah, 100%. Well, it also comes down to as well, if they were to go out and trade Mason, right? Does that mean that Chris Oladukin can be the QB number 3? And is Pickett ready enough to be the backup behind Trubisky? So, and that would be all 3 quarterbacks. None of them would have any snaps as a Steeler. So that would be quite interesting. But what I'm just trying to think through the process logically and trying to think about how the Steelers are doing these things. And maybe this could be a case scenario where if they went out and got, Rudolph for around a pick 4, as you suggested in the video, right? That could be another big move they've made under Khan, because then you'd have Trubisky starter, almost guy like franchise. Don't want to rush him in too far for what can happen, or maybe bring him in mid-season, or depending how it goes. And also another potential quarterback for the future to maybe trade down the line would be Chris Oladukin, right? Yeah. That would be one of the biggest plays to get some value back for Rudolph, knowing you're not going to start him anyway, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I think, you've got to get some. The other thing as well motivating the Steelers is the fact we've only got 6 picks for the 2023 draft. So there's that need to perhaps build up some more draft capital, especially after Omar Khan, when he was appointed, spoke about the whole, continuing need to build through the draft. And as I said in the video, Mason, people think about we're 6th or 7th, but we got a 5th for Joshua Dobbs. And with the best one in the world, I mean,
he's won games. He's won 9 and 8. He's played under a starter. He knows how to play in a system. So he might be. It's a very unique situation for Rudolph here, because I don't think he wants. I think he can possibly start for the Steelers, but I don't think he want to be backup. However, if he goes out to the 49ers, he's not going to be a starter, but he'd be a great backup. You know what I'm saying? Wouldn't that be correct? He'd be a good backup for the guy behind Trey Lance. However, why would you put Rudolph as a backup here when he wants to be a starter here?
Yeah.
It's very interesting. But I want to ask you this question too, Owen. What does a 3 QB race even look like in training camp if they were to do this 3 QB race? How does it work, with plays or repetition or working well with the receivers? How do these QBs or how do the coaches even like Bill Cowher says, how do they judge these guys in all 3 at once?
I've never ever coached in the NFL, so I'm speaking a bit sort of like from guesswork here. But it's tough, isn't it? Because what you necessarily see someone do when they work with the first team is going to be different to what you see someone who works for the second team or the third team. When Mitch is consistently throwing to the likes of Pat Freiermuth, Najee Harris, Chase Claypool, Deontay Johnson, George Pickens, that is going to look a lot better than Mason throwing to the second team. People like, for example, Miles Boykin or Cody White. And then that's going to look even better than Kenny Pickett throwing to the likes of the third team, who I would imagine, again, I'm guessing here, would be people like Anthony Miller, Tyler Vaughns, Stephen Sims, people of that caliber. So it is exceptionally difficult to do. Whereas I suppose if you've got 2, you can actually split first team reps fairly between 2 people. Whereas between 3 people, it becomes almost ineffective, really, because you're not giving them enough reps with that first team, with the center, Mason Cole or Kendrick Green, whoever that may be, or with the wide receivers, to learn how the wide receivers work, how Najee works. You're just not giving them enough. So whereas with 2, it's a damn sight easier to do that, isn't it?
Yeah, the workload it's very hard to, I guess, give everyone, number 1 reps as a quarterback. And, like you just said with Muth, right, or Najee or whoever, or Pickens, or I don't know, Claypool, you can't make them run three times the amount of routes if they're already just doing the number 1 reps. And it's also like with the game plan as well. With the game plan, how does that? And I know that we're not game planning yet for the Bengals, but coaches probably are. They're probably having a bit of. They're coaches. They probably game plan in the off season, but it's going to be interesting too heading into preseason, right, or training camp, where who do you expect to even start? I know it's preseason football, but who would start the first game?
Trubisky.
I think we're versing Seattle. I think the first game.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say Trubisky. You've got to. I mean, at the end of the day, the guy hasn't ever taken a snap as a Pittsburgh Steeler before. He hasn't worked with any. Well, I mean, he has worked with James Daniels, but he hasn't worked with Mason Cole as a center. He hasn't worked with him. He hasn't thrown the ball to Chase Claypool, Deontay Johnson, ever before. So you've got to, I think, go in with that and use them, and then any rest will come in week 3, like it always does in preseason, like we saw last year against Carolina, where none of the starters played when Dwayne Haskins was the starting quarterback.
Well, this year the Steelers only have 3 games, which is the shortest amount they've had in a very long time. They normally had 4. Last year, I think we had 4. Last year another year we had 5 or something like that with the Hall of Fame game too. It's interesting, isn't it, though? Because if Trubisky starts, I guess, the first preseason game, I think it is versus Seattle Seahawks. Doesn't matter who was first. But if he were to start, 2 or 3 drives, and then we're all, everyone's watching going, oh my, this guy, he's going to be the guy. Then I guess if Rudolph is still there, he would be second to come in. Pickett maybe come in the third quarter, and then Chris Oladuke in the fourth or something like that, right? Yeah. And instantaneously, we're going to be like, well, as fans, we're going to judge them and go, well, this guy is the best. This guy's the best. This guy's the best. But I think the order will show us who they think is number 1. And like Matt Canada said, the reps are already going towards Trubisky, then Rudolph. But it kind of makes sense too, because you don't want to give as a fan perspective, of course, you want to make Pickett over Rudolph. But as a team, you don't want to give Pickett the number 2 and make sure he's the big dog already, right? Yeah. You got to bleed him into the system. So overall, if we're talking about a 3 QB race possible, like is it possible? Like our question states, or is it not possible at all? Like Bill Cowher saying.
I think Bill Cowher's right. I don't think it's possible to really, like I said, split enough first team reps between 3 players for it to be effective, to be able to judge what someone can and can't do. Whereas with two of them, it is a lot more possible. You can either do it on a daily basis, like a day basis. So Monday, Mitch works with the ones. Tuesday, it's Kenny. Then Wednesday, back to Mitch. Thursday, back to Kenny again. Or you, I don't know, in training camp, you say, right, okay, it's a 3-hour training camp, so an hour and a half. It's Mitch, an hour and a half. It's Kenny, whatever. But no, I don't think with three you can get sufficient number of snaps to make an informed judgment.
Yeah, it is very difficult, and that's why this is the title of our podcast today, because it's a very intriguing question to see what happens. Because let alone we haven't had a quarterback since Big Ben era for 18 years, and this year they go out and get three. They bring in one via free agency and two via the draft. And to me, that Chris Oladukan one right near the end, around 7, I was like, why do they go and get another quarterback there? And there's a point now. Well, will Chris Oladukan be on the practice squad? Will someone else pick him up? He's a young, fit dude, mobile guy. A lot of these guys are all very similar. They all can run. They're all pretty healthy. And you are right. In my opinion, is a 3 QB race even possible? Well, let's just say, four is non-existent. There's no way you can do four QBs, going towards number 1. 3, it's like you said, the workload, the amount of workload that these guys need to go through and judge them upon. It probably isn't possible. And I respect Bill Cowher's thoughts on this approach. And like sometimes I think even like 2 is kind of like a bit funny, a bit like theatrical as well, because a 2 QB race is just all for the media. Every you hear about the Rams, or not now, but like the Rams or the Eagles or Giants or the QB race, and it's just to sell tickets, right? And about this player versus that player. But I think overall, I think the coaches know who's going to be number 1, or they have like the silent nod, like I know it's going to be this guy, e.g. Trubisky, or they kind of know it's going to be Pickett, but they know, and they're going to give them reps and stuff like that. And if let's say it is a 2 QB race between Pickett and Trubisky really starts laying duck eggs, well, then there's the next point. Well, Pickett's been outperforming you. Actually, Trubisky, we're going to go with Pickett. And he'll be like, I get it. I've been playing pretty bad. I've been playing terrible, right? So if that happens, I'll ask you this question before we get into some other news. But right now, who do you like? It's been a really funny offseason. It's been a crazy offseason. Who you going as a quarterback? Who's your number 1?
Week 1, I think Trubisky starts. 2 reasons why. 1, he is a veteran. He's got the experience, and I think Cowher's right. You need to give Kenny time to develop behind an experienced quarterback. And then reason 2, you don't put a rookie into that cauldron that is going to be Paul Brown Stadium in that week 1, where the Bengals have got a very high opinion of themselves. Their crowd's going to be very, very vocal. It's going to be very loud out there. You need someone with experience in that huddle, calling the plays, or if they've got to call audibles or go no huddle, you need someone with the experience to be able to do that. For a rookie, that is going to be intimidating coming in. I know college football is massive. I know the atmosphere gets intense there as well, but it's not the same as those AFC North divisional games.
Okay, let's say, for instance, that Trubisky struggles in the preseason and everyone is calling for his head. What happens then? Do the Pittsburgh Steelers still go Trubisky at number 1?
Yes, because it's preseason, and I think preseason proves nothing.
All right, well then we're going to have to battle through that.
Because the problem with preseason is the fact that you could put Trubisky out week 1 against the Seahawks. The Seahawks are going to be poor this season, right? And do you get a real adequate judgment of that? Then we play the Jags in week 2, and then we've got the Syndicate Derby when we play the Lions. So, at the end of the day,
Syndicate Derby, I like that.
Let's speak grid.
If you guys don't know, so we are the Pittsburgh Steelers Syndicate. There's also the Detroit Lions Syndicate, Denver Broncos Syndicate, and soon to be Minnesota Vikings Syndicate. So we're a bunch of podcasters or channel hosts doing our best version of the team. So I like that, the Syndicate Derby. Love it.
Yeah, we should get.
Oh, that's right. They are versing there. Seahawks. I was right. Jaguars. I can never say their name correctly now. I just think they're a joke.
It's called the Jags.
Just mate. I know they were okay, but they are just bad. And the Lions, okay, yeah, it's coming real soon as well. We'll be in June and then July, and then it's here in August.
We need to do a preseason live stream, don't we, with you, me, and Grid watching that game.
Yeah, we can, and then it means nothing.
Just for comedy value, really.
We can do that, but yeah, overall, to answer today's question, is the three QB race even possible? It's so intriguing. So we pretty much went down the route of the idea that possibly that Mason Rudolph could be traded. Now you don't want it to other teams for us to seem weak and be like, well, they're not giving Rudolph any reps. They're not treating him like a starter. Why would I want him? So they're going down that route where they're making him second in the reps, and Trubisky is first, I guess, and Kenny Pickett is third. So, in my opinion, I don't think it is truth. I think it's very hard to even have two, let alone three, because the coaches kind of know who number one is, and that's the direction of your team. You want to know who number one is. Like, I get frustrated too when some of these coaches in the NFL don't tell their fans, or they reckon they don't know who QB1 is until about 4 days before the game. Or they change quarterbacks all the time.
They'll know now. They will know. I mean, they won't know 100%, but they'll be 99% certain that's who they want to start game one. There's always that 1% uncertainty, isn't there, with anything in life? And I think it's the same with QB1.
Yeah, they're probably trying to figure out as well, who's going to be QB1, who's going to be QB2, and what scenarios happen if this player were to go down, or who's going to work well better with the offense. But I think overall, it is more of a fan question. Like will Pickett start? But they probably in the Steelers may think that Trubisky is the guy for the whole year, and that's just the way they're going to go with it. So, in other news, we wanted to talk about today as well. We want to talk about Deontay Johnson or Chris Boswell. Who are they going to sign next?
Yeah, I think this has become a topic of conversation because obviously now we've got $23.1 million in cap space still, which is the fourth highest in the NFL, which they say will go to 21.1 once Kenny Pickett signs his rookie deal. So there's money there to re-sign these two, one or both of these guys. Who would I pay first? Boz. It's a no-brainer. You need a kicker who's going to come in who is clutch. He is clutch. You can depend on him. The last, I can't remember the exact stats, but the last 3 years he has, here we go, I found him now. So 2019, he had a 93.5% success rate, 2020 a 95% success rate, and 2021 a 90% success rate. He's only had one dodgy year, which was the 2018 season, which was injury plagued, and he was replaced by Matt McCrane. But he's just clutch. The guy is just absolute clutch. And I really don't like you, Mark. I know I don't like talking about him too much because I don't want to put the yips on him.
Yeah, that's the reason. But I thought about it in the next few days covering Chris Boswell, and you may see this video coming out. But yeah, we don't want to put the yips or the hex on him because he is such a good player. And kicking and punting don't get talked about enough. But in this scenario, to answer this question, who would you pay, Deontay Johnson or Chris Boswell? I'm the same as you. I think you go out and pay Boswell. I think you pay him a 3 or 4 year deal, whatever you do. Whatever the kickers are worth, he needs to be top. He needs to be up there. Don't sell the house, but if you can guarantee him a spot, like I know a lot of people were really displeased about paying Minka, and Colin Cowherd went off, and I was like, you're a loser. Like if you can, like you've got Minka now for 5 years at that spot in safety, like done, like that's set, right? If you can set your kicker there, Chris Boswell, who was a freak, and he only really had one bad season so far, and we all didn't like him. I still liked it. I liked him in 2018. I've always liked Boswell. I think Boswell was one of the best, right? His stats reflect how good he is. He has, like you said, he's 88% career field goals, which is pretty damn good. So he's had field goals attempted, he had 206, and he's made field goals made 182. You think about that. That's not bad. Like that is not bad for the environment of Heinz Field. It's not bad for being a kicker in the NFL. 88% is pretty high because I think a lot of them will be about 65% to 70.
Take out that 2018 season, that would probably even be even higher. I mean, I know Tucker's is 91%. That's his success rate, but Tucker is a bit of a freak. But I'm just looking now at what Justin Tucker got paid. Justin Tucker has got a 4-year, $20 million deal, including $8 million signing bonus, 12 million, 12 and a
So
half
about
million
about 4
guaranteed.
million a season, right? I could see Boz getting that, near that, maybe 3
I
million a
mean,
season,
what's his
depending.
cap hit now? He's got apparently his cap hit for this year is 4.9 million.
Right. But
So,
I think he's worth it. I think you pay a kicker like that, the stats reflect who Chris Boswell is. And I think if you can lock him up and save him that position, then you don't have to think about any other kicker. And a lot of teams struggle with kickers and hiring them and even getting them on the field and getting them ready for games. How many doinks and off the double doinks did we see off the was it like 2 years ago? Missed field goal. I think he's only missed 2 extra points last year. So yeah, knock on wood, 1,000 times. I think for that question, I think we go with we agree with Boswell, and Deontay will probably be maybe signed this year, but the way it leans, I don't think he's look like he's going to be signed. Any final thoughts on Deontay or this podcast before we end it?
I think the other thing you've got to think about with the whole Boswell Deontay Johnson is even if you pay Boswell $5 million a year, it's not a lot, not in NFL terms. Not when you pay Minkah Fitzpatrick $18.5 million, TJ 20-odd million a year. Deontay Johnson, he was very good last season, but I think it's whether whether Deontay's management and the Steelers management can come together and agree on a figure. I mean, I read something today that was saying that he's not worth 18 to 20 million. He's more worth in that sort of 14 to 16 million bracket, but it's whether he would come down to that. It is all up in the air. So it's how much Omar Khan wants Deontay Johnson to stay, I suppose, at the end of the day, and Mike Tomlin wants him to stay.
Well, it's gonna be a funny scenario, right? So for instance, if Deontay gets paid this year and we pay him say $14-15 million, right, and then he bowls out and he's one of the best receivers ever, then we get a steal. However, if we don't pay him this year, that being Deontay, and Deontay plays so well and goes crazy and lights the league up, number 1 receiver, right? Yeah. Then all the other teams are going to be like, well, I'll pay him big money. And then the Steelers won't pay him then. The Steelers will just let him walk. So it's going to be very interesting. But, with the Boswell debate, who you pay, I think you pay Boswell. Because even with his stats too, with being like 88%, a lot of times that Tomlin has pushed him out there for a chance at the end of the half. Or in scenarios where you were pretty much going to miss the kick anyway, or you couldn't, I think he went for a 59-yarder in Heinz Field and he's got the record of 56, but he put him in scenarios where he wasn't going to get it, or at the end of the half, or end of the quarter, or something like that, something silly. So that diminishes his stats too. But I think overall they will pay Boswell next, hopefully before camp, and you've got him locked up, and you've got locked up Cameron Hayward, TJ Watt, Minkah. You got offense we're not paying too much money into, but basically they're all young guys. They're all these are future problems in 3 or 4 years that we don't have to worry about right now. Overall, any last thoughts, mate, on today's podcast?
No, it's a good discussion on the whole thing, and I mean the whole Deontay thing will rumble on. I mean, like when you consider Cooper Kupp's on 110 million over 5 years, which is for 22 million a year. That's something to consider as well. Is he in the same sort of class as Cooper Kupp? No, he's not. Definitely not.
Yeah, it's very interesting. I think what's going to happen over the next few weeks with the off season and training camp. A lot more questions as we get towards training camp. It's going to be so much fun. But thanks, guys, for checking out the Steel Syndicate podcast. I appreciate every single one of you checking out the video. Myself and Owen are going hard in the paint. We're drawing up plays, even though it's a basketball reference, but we're drawing up plays. We're running through the line like Franco Harris. We're catching the ball like Heinz Ward and knocking Ravens out. We're Debo tackling Browns fans. Aren't we? Aren't we going hard in the paint?
We're calling audibles with videos. Sometimes we're going no huddle.
we're being a bit cheeky, and Mike Tomlin was standing in the way of was it Jacoby Jones, the Raven, running down the sideline?
Yeah, and then he had to move at the last minute.
That's the one where you kind of go, yeah, look, we may do some things, but nah, it's okay. It's all right. I love that because his little smile too at the end, he knew he was in the way. He did on purpose. We all know he did on purpose. And as Steelers fans, when Ravens or whoever brings up, we're just like, nah, we're good guys. We're good guys. We don't do anything wrong. All right, Owen, mate. Thank you for checking
man.
checking out. Thank you for coming on the podcast and helping me out as a co-host here of the Steel Syndicate Podcast and Pittsburgh Steel Syndicate. Thanks, guys. You know, we got videos pretty much every day. Every day, yeah. Every day we're doing content, having a bit of fun and talking our team. And we're on that road. We just wanna bloody hoist the Lombardi, right?
Yeah.
I want to hoist the Lombardi. All right.
Number 7.
Thanks, guys, for checking out the podcast, and we'll see you later.